It was a question of if you don't transfer over everything, then you transfer over nothing. That's to a slave, right? But this is the regular shchiv meira circumstance. Okay. Now I've got all my property and I want to give it over to anybody, not a slave or anything else. There's no slave here necessarily, right? I want to give over all of my property. So if I don't give over everything, then it's not really a shchiv meira process, right? Then it's going to require a kinyan. Okay. So now Rava was asking a series of questions on what was, Ravina is going to ask. The last thing we were doing was, we had a couple of questions. Well, we may as well hit the last couple of them just to get a running start into it while we're waiting for Jeff to get his coffee. Anyway, right? We're good? We're on. So we'll start from, we're good? We're on? Okay. So Esvei, we'll start from Esvei Rav, we'll start from about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 lines from the bottom. It'll be Esvei Rav Misharshia L'Rava. We'll have Rav Misharshia's question, Rava, first. This way we'll get our way back into the questions that were being asked. Esvei, yes. That means to ask a question, right, with the foundation of the question being a Mishnah or a Brisa. Kuf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, yes. Okay. The first word on the line is machmas. So you'll have the word machmas. Okay. There you go. Okay. Esvei Rav Misharshia L'Rava. So Rav Misharshia asks Rava the following question. Ma'aseh be'imon shel bnei Rochel. There was a circumstance. We had the case. We discussed this yesterday, but we're overlapping a little bit. The story was with the mother of the children of Rochel. Rochel was the father, right? Shaisa chole, and she was sick. The Amran, she said, Tinosin kivinosi labiti. I'm going to give my scarf or whatever this expensive garment was over to my daughter. Vehu b'shneim asar mana, and it was worth 12,000 mana. Very expensive garment. But we presume that a scarf isn't the only thing you own. So this would be what we would call a gift miktsas. This would be a shchiv meira b'miktsas, a gift of a shchiv meira that is only partially. She's not transferring over all of her possessions. V'kimu divareha, and the Mishnah says the Brisa says that we followed what she said. Now, by the fact that it says what she said implies that there's no kinyan here, because if it would follow by a kinyan, it would be we would follow what she did, because kinyan is an action. By implying, so we sort of are implying a bunch of things into this Brisa, and that's going to be the base of our question. Number one, it was not all of her possessions. Number two, she was only speaking it, and there was no kinyan involved. So therefore, the question being asked is, why should this be effective? If you hold that a kinyan is required, he's asking Rabbi, if you hold that a kinyan is required in order for this gift of shchiv meira that isn't all of the possessions, only some of the possessions, if you require that a kinyan, a act of acquisition, to take place, why is this gift valid? So the answer that he gives is Pasam v'mitzav v'machmas misa. This is a stronger type of circumstance, because even though it was a gift that was not in its entirety, there was a gift. This is a gift which the person made a comment that because I'm dying, I'm giving this to you. Now, the reason why we're saying that these gifts where they give, the reason why shchiv meira works is because we're saying the person has complete intention to give everything over. So therefore, we're going to allow that shchiv. So in order for it to be a shchiv meira gift, they have to give over all of the possessions. Once you only give over part of your possessions, that's where the shchiv meira gift becomes less powerful, and that's where we're going to need the kinyan. However, if you make a declaration in your gift that you're giving it over because you're about to die, then that's equivalent to giving over all of your possessions. You're making it very clear that your gift is based on the presumption that you're going to die, and therefore you have full intention to give it over. And that's the shchiv meira. This is more than a gift of a shchiv meira. This is shchiv meira because you didn't make a declaration. Because what you made a the woman who's giving it over made a declaration. I'm doing this because I'm dying. Right. Therefore, it has greater transferability even without a kinyan. Even though if it was a gift of a shchiv meira, it would require a kinyan. Okay. So now we're going to ask another question. Esvei, again, we did this one yesterday. Esvei Ravina L'Rava, we were moving fast because it was a matter of time. Ravina asked Rava the following question. Ha'omer tnu get zel ishti. He says, give this divorce contract to my wife. Ushtar shichur zel la'avdi. Or this freedom document to free my slave over to my servant. Now, umes, he dies. Lo yitnu la'achar misa. You can't give those documents after the person dies. Why? Because the cessation of the relationship of a husband and wife or between a master and a servant has to take place through a document while the person's alive. Once the person dies, that document is meaningless because there's no husband to divorce from or no master to become freed from, and therefore the document is worthless, and so therefore giving that document is a bad idea. Somebody may mistakenly presume the document to be valid. Don't give that document. It doesn't have halakhic status. However, by contrast, Tenu Mana Liploni Umes, he says, give over this gift of 100 or whatever to so-and-so, and then he dies. Yitnu La'achar Misa, that you do give after the person dies. Now, why should that be? So, the answer is, after what, why would you give it over if the gift delo kanu mine, right? Because after all, there's no kinyan, there's no acquisition that took place. So therefore, if there's no acquisition that took place, how could the person acquire it after the person died? So it should be dumya to get. This case of the gift should be parallel to the case of the get. Ma get lav bar kinyan, just like the get, you don't transfer over as a kinyan. You don't say, here's the get, and we transferred it over with a kinyan, it was a get, and then you're supposed to hand it to the wife later. Af hainami delo kanu mine. So this also would be a circumstance where there was no kinyan. So nevertheless, what do we see? Even though there's no kinyan, we're going to give the gift over to the person after they die. Now, that flies in the face again of what Rabbi was trying to say, that a kinyan is required for the gift to be valid. So how again are we saying no kinyan is required? So the answer is, Hasanami will give the same answer again. This is again a circumstance where the person says, give this person my gift because I'm going to die. Once he says, because I'm going to die, that makes the gift more powerful, and it doesn't require the act of transaction. That's where we left off. Now, Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua, this is Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, but not the same Rav Yeshua, by the way, of Rav Yochanan ben Broka's Rebbe, not the same one. Amar, because this is an Amora. Amar, mitzvah machmas misa bi'alma boy kinyan. He says, you know what? Really, if somebody does command, he holds like this. In a normal circumstance, when somebody commands that a gift be given because he's dying, do you need a kinyan? You do need a kinyan, even though these circumstances didn't require a kinyan. We tried to answer that a gift because of death, it doesn't require a kinyan. He says, no, it does. It does require that transference of ownership. V'chitanya honey masnaisa, but I'll tell you why in these circumstances, why does it work despite the fact that there was no transfer of ownership? Because these were cases, even though they don't sound like those were this is the facts, these cases were where the person was giving away all of their possessions. Therefore, since it's giving away all their possessions, we said that is a matna shchiv meira. No kinyan is necessary. Dahi matna shchiv meira shaviva. Therefore, by giving away all your possessions, you've made it into a matna shchiv meira, gift of a deathbed gift, and therefore there's no kinyan necessary. Right? That everybody agreed to, that there's no kinyan necessary if it's a gift of shchiv meira. I know this is all technical and confusing. Once we get through these, we'll go through this a little bit. It'll come out the other side a little bit, but it's going to be a tricky day for some of these detailed technical cases today. The hilchasa, but the halacha is, bottom line is, matnas shchiv meira b'miktas. If somebody is on his deathbed and gives away not all of his possessions, but some of his possessions, boy kinyan, then you do need to make an acquisition together with that. The only time a shchiv meira doesn't need to make an act of acquisition, it does make sense. It does. If you think about it.
You had a difficulty understanding.
Right.
The distinction is you're assuming this person could die because he's on his deathbed. The other one is I'm going to die, and therefore I need to give it over.
And when you give over everything, he's basically admitting he's going to die. Therefore, the gift doesn't need a kinyan. But if he's giving over some, he really isn't relying. In which case, it means that if I don't have a kinyan, what am I giving? I'm really giving what's called a matnas bari. It's a healthy gift, and a healthy gift doesn't work without a kinyan, right? Because I'm thinking I'm going to get better. Because if you're not thinking you're going to get better, why did you keep some of the property for yourself? Okay, v'afal gav demes, and even if the guy dies, doesn't change the facts because it was all his intention when he gave the gift. That matters. Next was mitzav machmas misa. Let's say he gives the stronger circumstance. He commands, and he says, based on the fact he says it, because I'm dying, then you should take this. So then, lo boy kinyan. Then that does not require a transference of ownership. We can take his word. Vehu demes. That is all as long as he dies. However, Ahmad, if he gets better, right, then he's made a statement. I'm giving this to you because I'm going to die. Hence, if he doesn't, then choser, then the gift is returned, right? Because he's made it conditional on his death. And that happens despite the fact that I gave it to you with a transference of ownership. I said, here, take this. And you go, like this, it's mine. Nevertheless, I said, I'm giving it to you because I'm going to die. Therefore, it's a gift dependent on a condition. And when that condition doesn't happen, the gift is meaningless, even though I made that transference. Okay. Now, Machlokas Amoraim. Okay. About this concept of Shchiv Meira, who gives a gift and he makes a kinyan. It's actually going to wind up being, it's not necessarily such a simple thing when you start to hand over possession and make multiple. You think the more kinyanim you make, the better it is. Not necessarily. Itmar. Matna Shchiv Meira. Let's say a person who's on his deathbed, and he gives over this present of a Shchiv Meira. Shekosov ba kinyan. And he writes into this contract, the contract where they wrote it down, they said that he made a kinyan. He made a kinyan. Now, what did he do? He made a kinyan sudar. The guy wasn't there to be able to receive the gift. So what he did was, a sudar is a rag, is a cloth. And what he does is, he just says, here, I'll pick this up on behalf of so-and-so, and he'll acquire the ownership. And then they write down, the gift was given, that there was a kinyan that was made here. Okay? So now, Beirav Mishmeid Rav, in the yeshiva of Rav, they said in the name of Rav, Amri, they said, Arkivei Atre Rikshi. By doing so, you're riding on two horses, which means you're basically doubly protected here. You're in great shape. Why? Because it's going to work for one of two reasons. If it's a matna shchiv meira, you're giving away all your possession matna shchiv meira, so that's great. That works. And if you needed to if it's not a matna shchiv meira, it's a healthy gift, then you made a kinyan. So you're covered both ways. So according to Rav, this is great. Wonderful. Ushmuel Amar lo yadana maya dunba. He says, oh no, I don't know what to do about this case. This case is very complicated, not such a good situation. We'll say why he's bothered by it in a second. Beirav mishmei derav amri arkavei trei rikshi. In the yeshiva of Rav, they said in the name of Rav that it's like riding on two horses. Why? Or two animals. Harei hi kematnas bari. Harei hi kematnas shchiv meira. This present has the strengths of both a healthy gift and a shchiv meira gift. It's got both things. Harei hu kematnas bari. It's like a healthy person's gift in that Shem Amad, even if he gets better, Eino Choser, it doesn't go back. Why? Because you made a kinyan. You did it. You said you could. So this is, it has elements of it like a healthy person's transference. Well, what practical difference does it make if it's a healthy transference or not a healthy transference? If it's a healthy person's transference, then it can't be it can't be revoked if the person gets better, right? So therefore, this gift can't be revoked. Even though he gave away all the property, it doesn't get revoked. It also has the strengths of a shchiv meira. Why? Shim Amar halvasa leploni halvasa leploni. We had a case where, let's say, Reuven loans money to Shimon, and then Reuven wants to give that loan over to Levi, right? So if the three of them are standing around together, then Reuven can say, "Hey, you know what? Let's just take the money and give it over to my friend Levi here," and then Shimon has to pay Levi back instead of Reuven, right? That you could do, but you can only do that if all three people are standing together. Except shchiv meira. Because we're trying to be able to help the shchiv meira out, if the person isn't there, he can transfer the ownership from one person to the other person. Now, we did have a circumstance where we had a case that was earlier where we said that wouldn't work. Remember, we had, who was it? Rabbi Bar Yosef, I think it was, that didn't want to show up to help, who was it? Isser the Ger, to be able to transfer the ownership to his son. I'm not sure which of the was, but he didn't want to show up to do it. It was Rava. I think it was Rava who didn't want to show up to do that. But we were able to, in fact, do it with an OD or some kind of a method of transfer. So I presume that's what they're doing here. They're saying that there is this ability, that there's this extra ability to transfer the object based on the fact that it's shchiv meira. The shchiv meira has certain powers to it that a regular gift doesn't have, and a regular gift has certain powers that a shchiv meira gift doesn't have. This gift, by being both, The fact is that he's writing in it, I'm a Shivmei Rab, and I'm giving this gift over, and I made a kinyan. Says Rav, he's doubly good. That's awesome. That's like the best thing you can do, right?
Oh, wait, you can't transfer ownership of the kinyan? You couldn't do that?
You can't transfer ownership of a loan from person A to person C without both of them being present, unless you're a Shivmei Rab. Right? You have to have everybody there.
Well, why wouldn't a kinyan over, take priority over a shivnei?
It doesn't take priority over according to Rav.
Right.
It works both simultaneously.
Right. That's what I'm curious, because it would make, like, once you make a kinyan, what's left with the whole idea of the shivnei is that if he doesn't give away everything, then it gets.
You're really gonna understand Shmuel. You're gonna like Shmuel then. In a second, you're gonna love Shmuel. In a
I've
second.
always liked Shmuel.
All right, Shmuel is here. You're gonna like Shmuel in a second, right?
Like
What Brian is noticing is, look, you can't be both things, right? If you're going to enact, Rav says you're great. You did both things. You have a gift. This gift is simultaneously a gift for a healthy person and a gift for a Shivmei Rab. Brian says, time out. Wait a second. If you're a person who's dying on your deathbed, but then you made a kinyan, aren't you indicating that you don't want it to be a gift of person in your deathbed? Or if you're doing it as a deathbed thing, then why would you need the kinyan? Don't the two things contradict each other? Am I understanding you right? That's what Shmuel wants to know. Shmuel Amar, lo yadanamai adun ba. I don't understand what to do. You saw Brian was really upset by this. That was right. Shmuel got it. Because the problem is like this. The guy is lying on his deathbed. He could make a transference simply by saying, I transfer, right? Shema lo gomer lak no soel b'shar. But maybe he then said, you know what? I don't want to use my Shivmei Rab powers here. I want to transfer it with a contract. He was thinking, why would he do that? He's got the ability, right? I'm looking, he's got the ability to transfer it as a Shivmei Rab. Why would he write the contract if it's unnecessary? The answer is that there's an extra power that the star could give you, which is that if I get better, my gift doesn't return back to me. I want this gift to be final regardless. Therefore, by writing in the contract, I'm making it final. I don't want to use the Shivmei Rab privilege. I want to write it in a contract. But Shmuel says, once you're writing in a contract, you're indicating it's not a gift of a Shivmei Rab. Right? Ve'ein shtar li'achamisa. Once there is a deficit of a shtar as well. The deficit of a shtar is that the transference of ownership of a shtar, like we saw like yet, the transference can't happen once the person dies, right? The person only can I can give my gift of Shivmei Rab. That gift, we had special power to it, that after the person dies, then it belongs to, then the gift is transferred to me. A shtar is I give something to you, but I can only do that when I'm alive. If I write a shtar to you before you get it, the person who was giving it dies, the sale was never completed.
Right.
So the whole thing is off.
Right.
So if you made it clear that you want to use a shtar, then your Shivmei Rab privileges are revoked. You can't have both.
Or they only kick in, after he died. Like there's this gap. That's exactly it. When he's alive, he could write a shtar. Right?
That's right.
Right. Only when he's alive.
And when but if he's going to be a Shivmei Rab, why did he write this contract?
Right.
So he ruined it both ways. Says Shmuel, basically, right? It couldn't be a Shivmei Rab because you're writing a shtar, and you can't use the shtar because it didn't come to him until after he died. So I don't even know what to do with this case, says Shmuel. Okay? So Rav says it works. Shmuel says it doesn't work. Now, Virami derav ad derav, Shmuel ad Shmuel. We're going to see another teaching, and we're going to see that Rav and Shmuel rule exactly the opposite in this teaching as they just did. Again, Rav holds that this shtar Shivmei Rab works, and Shmuel says it does not. That's what we're going to have. That's what we say. Rami is a contradiction. Well, look, and here comes the contradiction. The Shalach Rabin Mishmei de Rabbi Yavo. Rabin sent the following teaching from Eretz Yisrael in the name of Rabbi Yavo. Havu Yad Isha Shalach Rabbi Elazar Legola Mishum Rabbeinu. It should be known that Rabbi Elazar sent the following teaching in Babylonia, everybody in Babylonia, in the name of our Rebbe, which is likely Rabbi Yochanan, I believe. I wouldn't see if he says who is it. It's Rabbi. It's Rabbi Yochanan. That's usually who Rabbi is. So let's assume that.
Wrote
No, because because remember, Rav and Shmuel is much earlier than Ravina and Ravashi, right? So, okay, so he says, Shchiv Meira. No, he says Rabbeinu is Rav. Sorry, I didn't say it. He says this was in the name of Rabbeinu, this is in the name of Rav. This is Rav's teaching. Okay, which is important because this is the name of Rav. That's who the contradictions be like. This is the teaching of Rav. Shchiv Meira she'amar kisvu utnu mana liploni. A Shchiv Meira who says, write this document and give the gift of this mana to so and so. Okay, same case. He's a Shchiv Meira and he says, write it in a contract. Umes, and then he dies. Ein kosvin v'nosvin. Don't do it. Don't write it. Don't give it. Shema lo gamar lahaknoso al bishtar, because he uses exactly what Shmuel's reason was. Because maybe he had in mind that he doesn't want to use his power of Shchiv Meira. He only wants to use the contract, and then the contract's not going to be valid because it wasn't delivered before he died. So now he's going to be stuck in between. So Rav says it doesn't work. Well, Rav said before it does work. That's contradiction number one. Vein shtar le'achar misa. The contract isn't going to work after he dies. V'amar Rav Yehuda amar Shmuel, and Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Hilchasa, the halacha is kosvin v'nosvin. You write it and you give it. So what are you talking about? Shmuel just said you don't because it's a problem. So why would you write it? So kasha derava derav, kasha de Shmuel. Rav is contradicting Rav, and Shmuel is contradicting Shmuel. What's going on here? The answer is derava derav lo kasha. I'll show you why Rav and the two teachings are not contradictory. Because had de kanu minei, had de lo kanu minei. Case number one is where he took the Kinyan Sudar and he went like this, right? And because he took the Kinyan Sudar and he went like this, he established that what is he trying to do here? Why would a person? He's trying to strengthen the gift. He's going through everything that he can. I'll go through Shchiv Meira. I'll lift up a Sudar. I'll write a star. I'm just trying to get this gift as strongly as possible over to this guy. That's what I'm trying to do. So therefore, since he did all of that, so then that's the acquisition is valid, right? But this circumstance, the second case where he said don't do it, he didn't do a kinyan. So therefore, it's unclear what he was trying to do. He's not. If it's clear that the person is real, the reason why he's giving the stars is because he's trying to make it so that the gift is strongly given. That's wonderful. But if you don't know what his intention is, if he was a Shchiv Meira, why was he writing the star? Well, I don't know. He didn't do a kinyan. I don't know what his intention is. So therefore, we're stuck. I don't know if he wanted to use the star. I don't know if he wanted to be a Shchiv Meira. So I'm stuck and I can't give it. The Shmuel lokash, and I'll tell you that Shmuel is not a contradiction. The miyapa es kocho. The answer that circumstance is that in the second circumstance is where the person makes a declaration. You know why I'm giving this contract over? Why we should write it? Because I am writing this contract in order to make this gift stronger. So if he makes that declaration, the reason why I'm making this gift is to make the star in order to make the gift stronger, then I do know what his intention is. His intention is to do a Shchiv Meira gift. He's just writing it in the contract so that everybody knows exactly what occurred. But he's not trying to use the star as a kinyan. So then that's fine, right? So so basic bottom line is both Rav and Shmuel are agreeing that if you don't know what they're doing, it can become a problem. But if in some way, and they disagree on the circumstances, but if in some way he makes it clear that his intention is to use one method or another method, then it could work very nicely. According to Rav, by making a kinyan sudar, you're indicating that you are using this both methods. And according to Shmuel, he makes a statement that the whole reason why I'm doing this is in order to make his hold on this present stronger. So as long as he makes that clear, then it will work. Okay, Yosef Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Achorei de Rava. So we have to get the geography of everybody here. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was sitting behind Rava, right? They would sit in rows in the base medrash. The bigger, the better Talmidim were closer to the Rebbe. That's how they did it, right? So I think like you put the weaker students in the front. No, well, that's like a modern thing, right? They put the stronger students close to the front. That was a sign of respect, right?
The pet in the front.
Sorry?
The
teacher pet is in the front. That's right. So what was happening is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was sitting behind Rava. The Yosef Rava kami to Rav Nachman. And Rava was sitting facing Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman was doing the teaching. Rava in the front row. Behind him, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, also named Rav Nachman, not the same Rav Nachman. Okay? Kaboy minei. And he asked the following question. Mi Amar Shmuel Shema lo gamar lahaknoso ella bishtar vein shtar leachar misa. How could Shmuel be using this explanation for why this Shchiv Meira who sends a contract how could he use this explanation that we claim he made? Is he really the one who says that we can't use this contract because maybe he didn't intend to transfer the gift of a shchiv meirah unless what he meant to do is he was trying to send it through the shtar, and the shtar doesn't work until after death. So therefore, I don't know what to do in this case, and therefore the shtar doesn't work. Is he really the one who says that? The Ha Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Didn't Rav Yehuda say in the name of Shmuel, shchiv meirah shekasav kon nechasav lachir? Let's say I have a shchiv meirah, and he hands over all of his possessions to somebody else. Afal pisha kanu miyado, even though the person acquires the object, right? They literally came and they made a kinyan and they did the whole works. Amad, if he gets better, so then choser, the gift goes back. Why? Because shelo haya kinyan ela machmas hamisa. So the kinyan only works. It's clear that the only reason for the transaction is because he was going to die. Right. Therefore, even though is this the same the same thing that we just had moments ago, right? Even though he makes a kinyan, the whole thing is conditional on his death. So therefore, if he's a shchiv meirah, gives over everything. Even if he makes a kinyan, everything goes back the way it was if he gets better.
So it's either A or B, isn't it? You're not like here. If you're going to go on machmas hamisa, or shchiv meirah, that's one form of contract. And then you have a shtar. Now you're mixing the two.
That's Shmuel's problem.
Right. I'm still struggling with it.
It's good. you really like Shmuel. That's right. Really like Shmuel. So now, the question is, how could you agree? How could you hold that Shmuel's the one who says that I can't use this contract because the shtar, not the shtar, whatever, when this case that Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, he says that a shchiv meirah who makes a kinyan, right? The gift works. So what's going on here? Why is it that the gift works in the case he makes a kinyan, and with the shtar you said he doesn't make a gift? So what did Rav Nachman do to Rav's question? He waved his hands at him, and Rav was quiet. Okay? Now, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was sitting behind him. He didn't understand the transaction that he just saw, right? So, when they got finished with the lecture, Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak l'Rava, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak went over to Rava, and he said, "My achvilach, what was the hand motion thing about? What was that thing that they did with his hands there?" So Amar Le b'miyape es kocho. He says he was making an indication to me, like maybe he made a signal like this, that the intention of the kinyan was only to strengthen the hold of the gift. And that circumstance we had Shmuel said that if he makes it clear, the reason why he's making the kinyan, the reason why he's handing it over with the kinyan, is not to nullify the gift of the shchiv meirah, but rather just to strengthen the gift of the shchiv meirah. It doesn't contradict, right? So that's what he answered me. Okay, so the Gemara wants to know, Hechi dami miyapes koko. What kind of a thing do you do in order to show that you're strengthening it, right? If you write a shtar, that's not good, right? We know that that's going to mess everything up. So what's the right thing to do? Somewhere of Chisda says, V'kanina minei, Mosef al masnasada. You write in there, into your contract, you write, and you are acquiring this, he's acquiring this object from him, more so to add on to the strength of this present. Meaning you write right in there. The whole reason why we made this kinyan wasn't to replace the present I'm giving, it's to add additional strength and validity to the present I'm giving. Really, this is a present which is a shchiv meirah, which is why it goes back and dies. This is really a present of a shchiv meirah. Then what are you doing with the kinyan? I'm just making a public illustration that I mean business. Okay, so as long as you make that clear, you haven't contradicted, and then you can be okay. Now, pshita, it's obvious, says the Gemara, kasav lazeh v'kasav lazeh. So then, let's say he writes all of his possessions over to this guy. Then he writes all of his possessions over to this guy. Right? He's got two outstanding, whatever documents that one says, I hereby in my will leave everything to you. And then I hand over here in my will, I leave everything to you. Okay? So, Hainu dechi also Rav Dimi Amar. This is what the case is that Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, and he said as follows: Daitiki mivatelas daitiki. A document of a shchiv meirah can nullify a previous document of a shchiv meirah. Basically, we look at what time and date each one was written. Whatever one is latest, is the one that is valid. Why? Because we said one of the characteristics of a shchiv meirah present is that the gift is promised, but it isn't delivered until the person dies, which means that normally with a present, I can't give the same gift twice. Once I give this bottle of wine to you, I can go over to you and say, I really want you to have this bottle of wine. That's great, but it's not mine anymore, so I can't give it to you. I already gave it to you. So I can't do that. But with a... That's correct. So you can't do it. But a shchiv meirah, I can. Because a shchiv meirah, I say, well, I'm going to give you all of my possessions when I die. Great, but I'm not dead. Meanwhile, I give you all my possessions. That's wonderful. I can do that because I'm still owner of all of my possessions. Right?
He's still the owner?
Because I haven't really given it to him because I haven't died. Right? So that's what's happening there. So that's what's going on. Now, however, what happens if kosav v'zicha lazeh? What if he not only writes the gift contract over, but then he makes a act of acquisition additionally, in addition to that, writes the shtar and acquires the object to you, and now I change my mind. Well, what are the sides here, right? Well, Rav says, Rishon Kana, the first guy owns it. Why? Because that act of acquisition, remember what he said, that even though it's a shchiv meirah, you're also acting and making a transference that would be an effective transference if you were a healthy person. So once that happens, the case is similar to the bottle of wine. Because I've said, here, this is my shchiv meirah gift to you, and make a kinyan, and it's yours now. Well, then it's yours. I cannot now go to give it to you, because I already gave it to him. That's why the Rishon, the first person, gets it. Shmuel says, Sheni Kanu, the second guy gets it. Why? Because Shmuel says, this kinyan thing, it's unclear whether you're trying to give it a shchiv meirah as a kinyan or what's going on. So therefore, it's going to be the second person. The first person's gift is sort of nullified in the circumstance here. So we're going to explain. Rav says Rishon Kana, the first one acquires Harehu Kematnas Bari. Why? Because this now, once you made a kinyan, this is no longer a shchiv meirah gift. Once you went to the first person and said, here you go, and you made a kinyan and you took possession of it, it's yours. So it's a regular healthy person's gift. It doesn't follow the rules of a shchiv meirah, which we said, by shchiv meirah I can change my mind. This is not a shchiv meirah. This is a regular healthy person's present. Ushmuel Amar, he says, no, Sheni Kana, the second person gets it. Why? Because Harehi Kematnas shchiv meirah. So this is a present, this really is a shchiv meirah, because the act of the acquisition, at best, is only to strengthen the act of shchiv meirah that he's really making. So therefore, I'm not really making this into a new type of present. I'm just saying, here, I'm going to be as a shchiv meirah, I give it to you. And here, pick it up and go like this. Okay, great. And pick it up and go like this. Now, why did I do that? I did it in order to strengthen my matna shchiv meirah to you. But it's still a matna shchiv meirah, which means that I can then change my mind and go to you. Now,
without lifting something up.
Well, I don't even need to do lifting something up. Correct.
The first one is fortified, the second one...
Even if the second one's not fortified, you're right, because the fortification is really not exactly meaningful, really, right? Ultimately, it's still a gift of a shchiv meirah, according to Shmuel. That's a good point, too. Now, the Gemara wants to know, we already sort of predicted this was going to happen. Other than the fact that this whole Gemara is kind of confusing. We really could have predicted the answer to this because it's almost identical to what we've already been learning about Rav and Shmuel, about what they hold about making a kinyan and a shchiv meirah gift and all of that. They already argued about this on page 1, right? On 152a, they already argued about this. Now 152b, we see the exact same argument. Why do we have to bring it again? So the answer is this is a circumstance where the gift is a shchiv meirah gift, and you're writing into the gift that there was a kinyan involved. And it is a new case. Tzricha, I do need to write it differently. Why? If I learned the first case, why would Rav say that it's a real healthy person's gift? Maybe only because you made a kinyan, right? Maybe because you made a kinyan, that was part of the element. The shtar, all it was a shtar. But if it was a shtar case and he never made the kinyan, then maybe he would agree with what Shmuel was saying, that it would sort of be contradictory and there was never anything that was fully completed or activated, so maybe not. Maybe he would agree with Shmuel. And if you told me that in this circumstance, Shmuel would say, well, once you're not clear on what your intentions are and you are b'shtar, but you also are b'shlimira, that's where I'm not sure what to do with it. But b'hakam or Shmuel, aval b'hach, but if it was a kinyan and it was very clear that he was saying, this is what I want, who I want to give it to, so then imamo delay Rav, he might agree with Rav. So tzricha. It's okay, so I'm going to agree with Rav. Now, that is Besura Mas Nuhachi. That's how they learned the argument, this whole last page or so. That whole argument between Rav and Shmuel is how they learned it in Surah. The Pumpadisa Mas Nuhachi. In Pumpadisa, they taught this with an extra little twist. Okay, we're all looking for an extra little twist. Yay! Hamar Rav Yirmiyah Barabba. Rabbi Yirmiyah Barabba says, Shachal mi be Rav. They sent from the yeshiva of Rav Shmuel. They sent a question over to Shmuel. And they asked him, Yilamdenu Rabbeinu, Rebbe, please teach us. Shchiv meira shekasav kol nechasav lachir. Let's say you have a shchiv meira, and he writes over all of his possessions to another person. V'kanu miyado, and then he makes a kinyan as well. Mahu. What would be the halacha in that case? So shalach lahu, and he said to them, Ein achar kinyan klum. If he makes a kinyan, that's it. Oh, 1 second. What's going on here? Shmuel said that if he's contradicting, so we have to separate three different versions, three different things that Shmuel said. Number one, right? He said that if I make a kinyan, if I make a shchiv meira gift and I make a kinyan, that's ironclad. Can't change my mind. Can't go back on it. I can't give it to another person. Even Shmuel, according to this version, even Shmuel agrees that once I finish that gift, I cannot change my mind. Okay. Then we had another circumstance. The worst circumstances where I make no kinyan and I give a shtar. If I do that, well, then that's pretty bad because now I've messed up my shchiv meira, I've messed up my shtar. I wind up with a little bit of nothing. I don't know, that gift doesn't do much at all. If I wind up with a gift, and if I wind up with a shchiv meira gift, and then I say that I'm making this kinyan in order to give extra authority and power to my shchiv meira present, then in that circumstance, it works like a shchiv meira present, 100%, and it goes to the person when he dies and returns back to him if he lives. Those are three different ways this transaction can take place, and that's how they learned in Pumpadisa with Shmuel.
The second one I don't understand how it works because the second one, you figure the shtar would outweigh this shivni. Like it wouldn't be like, it sounded like what you said is that they sort of nullify each other because you don't know which way to go. But you definitively have a shtar.
I hear you're going.
You have a shtar.
Could be Shmuel's holding
why
that.
Why would the shtar have no
Well,
weight?
because you wrote into the shtar, I guess, that you were acting, this is a shtar of a shniv meira. But you're right, because that is really the problem. The problem is what we said, right? The problem is what we said, that because I'm using the shtar, I've ruined my shniv meira gift, and my shtar doesn't work because I'm already dead. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm making that stuff anyway, right?
But isn't that the same sort of idea as like if you find a shtar? If I found the shtar,
yeah,
and somebody died, and I had a shtar in it that he gave me something, that would hold up. I would say, like, I have something.
His heirs would be responsible, but the shchiv meira is present, right? That's only because the shtar is declaring that a transference or a loan already took place.
Right.
This is a document of transference of ownership. It was never, it's like the get. It was never handed over, hence the transference never took place. Right.
Okay, that makes a lot.
Now, Savar Mineh will be out of this swamp in a little bit. I'm sorry. Sorry, this daf is a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
I'll have to say, right?
I apologize. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But isn't that what a will is? Like, you don't put a will technically in somebody's.
A will ideally is if it's a shchiv meira gift, and then the will is to strengthen that shchiv meira gift. Well, that would be a good way to do it. Another, right? Yeah. Just be a documentation of what the person's last statements were, right? You don't want the will to be, this is my transference of ownership document, because that isn't going to work. Right? The will is just, here's a letter saying this is what I wanted to happen.
Okay.
A will is probably even less than a shchiv meira document, because a will is just, I want everybody to know my final requests. Right? I want, as a request, you to take this and you to take this, and then everybody has to get together and decide that they're going to listen to what everybody requested. Right? You don't have to listen to his request. It's a request. We have a mitzvah to listen to dying person's requests. So therefore, it's a good idea. But if one guy wanted to be tough on everybody and say, no, I refuse to listen to my father's last requests, he could. right? But he can't nullify a gift that was already given. That's too late. So a will is usually like I hereby. If a person says I hereby bequeath, if he says this is what I'd like to do, right? You have to be clear about what you're trying to do. Now, Savar Minei, we thought to learn from here, Hani Mili Leachar, this fact of I can't change my mind once I make a kinyan and I give it to you, that I can't transfer it over to you. That means that's what we're talking about. Aval liatzmo, but maybe I can change my mind and say, I don't want to give it, I'm going to keep it myself. Maybe I can do that. Because of my kinyan, I can just I am a shchivmir after all. Maybe I can cancel it and take it back. But, Amar Luhu Rav Chisda says, Ki also Rav Huna me kufri. When Rav Huna came from Kufri, he said, Pirsha explained, Bein latzmo bein lacherim. Doesn't matter, right? That's a done deal. That gift is with a kinyan. It's a done deal. You can't get back. Ahu dekonomine. He transferred it. Also, lekami to Rav Huna. There was once a person who dekonomine. There was a guy who did this transference. He thought he was doing a great idea. He was dying, and he says, "Here, come and make a kinyan," and he made a whole kinyan, and then he got better. So he wanted his stuff back. It was a shchivmira gift. He made a kinyan. He wanted his stuff back. Also, the Kamei to Rav Huna, he came before Rav Huna. Amar, ma yavid lach. So Rav Huna said to him, what am I supposed to do for you? Delo achnis kinemakni inshi. You didn't do it right. Everybody knows a shchivmira gift. You just give a shchivmira gift. You decided you wanted to be mahadrin and mina mahadrin and whatever you wanted to do, extra stringencies and whatever, and you made a kinyan. You messed yourself up. The gift is done. There's no turning back. That's what Shmuel says. We follow Shmuel when it comes to money. When it comes to money deals. So therefore, this poor guy, right? You can't do it. Okay, now, Hahimantanta Davakosov ba b'chaim b'mavis. There was a guy, and he wrote in his letter of the Shliach Meirah, he wrote that I'm giving this when I'm alive and when I'm dead. Now, that makes a big difference. If he writes when he's alive, this is a matnas bari shtar. If he says when this is going to apply when I'm dead, it's a shchiv meirah. So what's going to happen here? So Rav says harehi kamatna shchiv meirah. This is really a shchiv meirah present. Huh?
This is I'm giving this over because I'm.
He wrote right. I'm giving it over in life and in death.
Right.
He didn't write because of life or death. He said giving it over in life and death. So Rav says this is a shchiv meirah case. And Shmuel Amar Hari Kamatnas Bari. Shmuel says no, it's a healthy gift. Rav Amar, now we explain. Rav Amar Hari Kamatnas Shchivmira. It's a Shchivmira gift. Why? Midechsiv ba b'maves. He said the gift applies when I die. Hence, it's a Shchivmira gift. So Achar Misa Kamarli, he's saying that this gift is going to apply after I die. V'hai dekosa b'chaim. So the question is, so why do you write in life then? The answer is Simon Bialma. He didn't want to talk about his own death. So he wrote, Mirz Hashem, I should live. But if I die, this is the gift. Right? That's what he said. It's my gift when I die. I should live. Right? I should live to 100 days. That's what he wrote. So the life part was just like a simon, a nice thing he wanted to say. Bli ayin hara. As he says, the Rasha says, Al tiftach pel satan. You don't challenge fates. You don't want to say such negative things. Right? So therefore he said, now, right? Because he says, Simon bi'alma dechaye. It's a simon that he wants to be in the living world. Ushmuel Amar, Shmuel says, no. The focus isn't on the death part. Harehi kamatnas bari. It's a full-flown, healthy person's gift. Midechsiv be b'chayim. Since he wrote, this is a gift while I'm alive. Mechayim kamar. He's saying, this gift applies immediately, right now, while I'm alive. V'hai dekosav ubemavis. Why do you write and in death? Kamandamar me'atzav yadalam. That's like saying, I want this to be permanent. And what's more permanent than death? Right? So the argument between Rav and Shmuel is, which of the two words, life or death, is the one that has the meaning of when the shtar is effective, and which one is just the poetic license that he's taking in order to indicate some other thing. So, Amri Nardai and Nardai, they said, Hilchusa Kavasi de Rav, the halacha in this circumstance is like Rav. That's interesting, right? I know, where's the halacha Hilchus Mamonis? For some reason that this doesn't follow that rule. And I'm not exactly sure why.
Honestly, whoever wrote that thing anyways is too dramatic.
So he says that it goes for the death one, right? He says it's a matna shchivmira.
So if you wrote this to two people, would it still go to the second person then?
So now if he writes it to the second person, it's going to go to, yes, it'll go to the second person. That is correct. As a matna shchivmira, he can change his mind. That's exactly right. Yes. Amar Rava says, that's application skills. That's good. Higher order. Amar Rava, v'i ksiv ba mechayim. Rava says, yeah, but you know what? If you write in that contract from life, kana, then that is a live person's gift. Amar Ramemar says, Leis hilchasa kavasi de Rava. Rava, halacha is not like Rava. Well, Amar le Ravashi la Memar, these are the later time. Ravashi says to Amemar, Shita, obviously the halacha is not like Rava. Damri Nardai hilchasa kavasi de Rav, right? We already said the halacha is like Rav. Rav is the one who said we don't focus on the life part, we focus on the death part. So obviously that Rava says we follow, that when he says Michaim, it doesn't, then it's a live person's gift. Obviously that's not the halacha. No, Mahu Detema, what would you have thought to say? Michaim Modi Rav. When is it that Rav says that it's a gift for death? When he says B'chaim u'b'mavis, in life and in death. He is now saying Meichayim. This gift should be from life to death. By saying from life, maybe I mean to give it from now while I'm alive. So therefore, Kamash Malan, therefore we're telling you, no, the halacha is not like Rava. That is not what Rav meant. And the halacha is in fact like Rav and not like Rava. Hahuda also the Kame de Rav Nachman learned. There was a circumstance, a case, okay, where a person came to Rav Nachman to Nardai. Rav Nachman was the head of the Beis Din in Nardai, which was also, we know that Shmuel in previous generation was the Rosh Hashiva before. Shadrei lekami dermia. The guy had such a circumstance where he had a contract, a case, and he said Mechaim of Amavis, and then he got better. Now he wants his possessions back. If the halacha is going to follow Shmuel, it's a gift in life, and he's not going to get his possessions back. If the halacha follows Rav, then he's going to get his possessions back. So what does Rav Nachman do? He sent him off and said, you know what? Go ask Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba the question. Right? L'shum Tamya. Go over to this place called Tamya. You'll find a great Rav there, Rabbi Yirmiyah and his Beis Din, and he'll take care of it. Amar, so why didn't he take care of it? Why didn't he answer the question himself? He's answering all these questions and things. Why did he send him off to somebody else? The answer is, Amar, he said, Hacha Asra de Shmuel. He said, this is Nardai. This is Shmuel's hometown. Therefore, even though the halacha is like Rav, but in Shmuel's hometown, Hechi Navid Kavasi de Rav, it would be disrespectful for us to do what Rav says. So therefore, I couldn't make a psak halacha to go against the local Rosh Hashiva. That would be disrespectful. But I know the halacha is like Rav. So when the guy came and asked me the question, I told him go someplace else. I'll go ask there. They'll get, knowing that they're going to give him the answer, the right answer, Rav, and he doesn't have to then paskin like Rav in Shmuel's place. I love this gift. I love this example already.
And then someone else comes and takes it away.
So, hahi de osai lekami de Rava. Another case that came before Rava. Avad la Rava kishma say. So Rava did like he said. He said the contract said mechayim umavis, and so he said that means it's a life contract, not like Rav said. And we had held that Ravina and Rashi, they said no, the halakha is not like Rava. He's wrong. Rava followed his own opinion, and he paskin that way. Hava katar delay. This lady who came was very upset because she knew that was not the halacha. Rava had said it, but everybody had already talked and said, Rava, that's not the halacha. So she's pretty upset that Rava made this psak. So, Amar le Rav Papa Brei de Rav Chanan Safrei. Rav Papa, who was the son of Rav Chanan, was Rav, each Beis Din had a sofer, right? You had to write contracts. So they had a guy who's he was the official scribe of the court. And so he leans over to the scribe of the court. You gotta get this lady, you gotta get her to go away. She's really nudging and she won't go away. She doesn't like my psak. And we're just going to get rid of her. So here's what you can do. Zil Kosiv law, go ahead and write a contract. Write that the money goes back to her. Make her happy. Just write it into a contract. Now, the problem is she's going to take that contract and she's going to collect. So you can't let her collect. So what else do you do? The Kosiv ba socher alehem o mat on. Right at the end of the contract, a little phrase which comes from a Mishnah. The halacha is, let's say workers come to do the work at your house, and they're supposed to do the work, and then they leave early, they leave a mess or whatever. And you want to hire other workers to take their place. Now, the other workers don't want to do the job for half the day's work. You can promise them that you could tell them that they're going to get paid a full day, even though you're really not going to pay them a full day, right? Because you need the work done, and that's the circumstance. So what you're really doing is this circumstance. In that circumstance, you're allowed to sort of fib a little in order to be able to get people to do. You're going to pay them for the work that they do, but you're trying to get them to take the job, even though they wouldn't take the job. And under those circumstances, discuss that case later on. That is not in that circumstance. We'll see why, but we'll have to wait another 6 years or so. But the point of the matter is, that it was code, because he's writing in there, and any good judge who knows their Mishnayos is going to know that you're allowed to trick somebody a little bit, say something that's not exactly true in order to, get what you need out of the situation, right? So why do you write that at the end? Because somebody's going to read this contract and says, the money goes to her, and then they're going to go, oh, but you're allowed to trick somebody. Okay, so clearly what Rabbi was doing is tricking her. Okay, so I was like that. Exactly. My fingers are crossed. This shtar is completely invalid in code form that only another judge would understand. Problem is, this lady was no slouch. She knew her Mishnah. Amra litva arbe atuye kamatayasli. She says, your boat should sink because you tried to trick me. Right? She was very upset. Right? So she cursed him. His boat should sink. So everybody heard this curse, and they got very nervous about it. Shinhu limane de Rava b'maya. So they took Rava's clothes and they dunked them in water to try to say, okay, that'll be the curse, right? We used to have a custom in Norfolk, Virginia, right? That you don't want somebody to be in a bad financial state. If Hashem has decreed against you that you're going to need to borrow money from people, right? So then that's a tough decree. So one of the people in the shul used to give out lollipops to everybody in the shul on Erev Yom Kippur, saying, if Hashem has decreed that you need to borrow something from somebody, this should be the gift that this should be a gift that fulfills that decree. So therefore, since they were trying to fulfill the decree, in a way, okay, it says clothes got wet. Not that's such a big deal. This way we fulfilled the decree. But even though they did that, lo ifrik mitiva, that did not save him from one of his boats sinking, and he suffered great financial loss from the circumstance. And it reinforces the concept: don't
lie.
Well, don't lie. Yes, good, even Rava, right? And don't take a regular person's curses lightly, right? We've got to be able to make sure that understand that when somebody who is a regular person gives somebody a bracha or somebody curses somebody else, those are meaningful words. Words have significant power and meaning. That's what I had heard, but then I wanted to point out that this lady was exceptionally learned. She was able to go toe to toe with Rava in his Beis Din pretty good. I don't think that I would be able to go toe to toe with Rava like this lady was. She knew Rava's halacha and his psak, knew that he was the only Beis Din in town that was making a psak like that, and then knew his trick that was being set up with his scribe. So she was an expert in the scribe, expert in Mishnayos, expert in Rava's halacha, expert in gifts of Shchiv Meirah. It's a good question why she wrote Mechaim Levavis. Why didn't she just not write that in the first place? That was the only place that she messed up, but I guess she understood how it was all going to work. So maybe she wasn't such a pashti. Maybe she was really somebody unique and special, and that's why her curse lasted. Well, I don't know about Yenta. She was definitely something. I see this lady as being something pretty powerful. So
I'm stuck at the fact that he was allowed to trick her. Is that because
allowed? No, but that's what happened. He got punished, right?
Right. No, but you said that there's a place in halacha where that's not considered misbehavior. Is that for a shoita or like somebody who's
He made his psak. She wouldn't leave.
Oh, she wouldn't leave. Okay, so she was innocent.
Right. So it's like, I'm sitting in my office and I'm sorry. Your son's not getting extra credit on his homework, even though you're arguing, and you won't leave. So at some point, I got to call security, right? Like, enough. It's time to go.
Okay, that makes sense. Fine.
So at that point, I'd say, okay, fine. We'll change the report card. Go. And then I don't do it, right? So then that's what he was trying to do.
Or take yourself to someone else and ask him.
So you can't do that. That halacha you can't do. You can't, once you ask the halachic shayla to one.
That paper that she wrote, maybe she showed it to someone else.
So that's a good, it sounds like she didn't leave. Sounds like she ran right away. She says, no, you tried to trick me, and she was not fooled, right? Okay. Now, it says in the next Mishnah, Lo kasav ba shchiv meirah, Hu omer shchiv meira hayisi vehein omrim bari hayisa. So what happens is some guy has there's some guy is, I guess he was dying and whatever. He writes this contract of shchiv meira. Well, it's not even clear whether he was or he wasn't. There's a contract, gift contract, and it's not clear. It doesn't say in the contract whether the person who wrote the contract was healthy or was a shchiv meira. He claims that I was a shchiv meira, and I'm better now. I want my stuff back, right? They claim, no, he was 100% healthy when they gave me this contract. This was a gift of a healthy person. Hence, I'm not giving it back. That's the argument. So, Tzarich lahavi raya sheshchiv meira haya divrei meir. Rabbi Meir says, the nosa, we're going to call these are two people, the giver and the receiver. The giver, he's the one who has to bring a proof. He has to be able to prove that he was a shchiv meira at the time in order to be able to keep his possessions. The Chum say, what are you talking about? Hamotzi mechavero of a raya. You want to take the possessions away from somebody else? The burden of proof is on the claimant. Therefore, the gift receivers, they are the ones who have to bring the proof. Okay, good. So we have eight, number 9. I'm Rabbi. So we'll stop here right after we'll start right after here at 9:30, right here at the beginning of the mark. All right.